you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. All right. This is a fundamental truth. Now, we have 5 people that we spend time with, but we don't look at it through the lens of talent stacking, and we don't look at it ordinarily through the lens of what do we want to do with the next chapter. These 5 people can be rotated over time. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to break up with them. I'm just saying, whenever you want to get closer to someone else, you've decided that your identity is going to change. You're going to need to change your structure of where you're getting information from to move yourself to a different place.
Welcome to SaaS That App, Building B2B Web Applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I'm your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to SaaS That App. It's Justin here. Today we've got a real treat for you. Our guest is a pretty big celebrity in a very niche, very dedicated space, and I'm genuinely honored to have him on the show. Unfortunately, my co-pilot Aaron is out on adventure this week, and hopefully I can keep this thing from going into the ditch while he is out. Our guest today is Jonathan Mendonsa. He's the co-founder of ChooseFI, a show that has millions of downloads, hundreds of local groups around the globe, and has changed the way an entire generation thinks about money, freedom, and lifestyle design. Jonathan has lived through multiple pivots, starting in pharmacy, ChooseFI, Talent Stacker, and now he's a self-taught developer who's built a platform used by thousands and thousands of people. Jonathan, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, to start off, can you let people know a little bit about your journey, maybe starting in pharmacy and into ChooseFI, and just give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, okay. So I was classically trained as a pharmacist. For all intents and purposes, what that means is that I spent 4 years of undergrad, then you got 4 years of pharmacy school, and then you come out and finally you're able to do the thing that you've been training for, and you also have $160,000 of debt, just a little rounding error. So if after about a week or two you realize that this job is terrible, then you're faced with a series of regrets about the last 8 years and also the next 8 years that it's going to take to pay off the student loan to get back to broke. There's something to be said for being broke and not $160K in debt. Anyways, all that being said, I'm an unlikely person to be able to speak to financial independence. And I hope for those of you out there that are maybe have this idea of where you want to be in the future, that's encouraging because today is the first day of the rest of your life, right? I'm going to fill this show with a lot of platitudes, but these are platitudes that speak to my soul, and I think they're actionable. And I want to just walk you through my story and incorporate them and how, there's many ideas that I've tried and tested over time, but there's some big ideas that have stayed with me. And so really what got me here, the first step was if I want options, and I think most of us can identify with the idea of wanting options, I have got to get this debt out of my life. It is very difficult to pivot with debt hanging over your head because you have an obligation to pay off that debt. And that is basically what the system, at least here in the United States, creates for us. By the time that you have experience and you now are in a place where you actually know what you want, you don't have options because your options are all tied to a debt burden that you signed up for unwittingly, unknowingly, etc. Woe is me. That's fine. But the reality is today's the first day of the rest of your life. And really, the point that I would want to communicate, time, not money, time is your most precious resource. Okay. That is the underpinnings of financial independence, is this reprioritization or recognizing YOLO, sure. But time is your most precious resource. So in light of that, we can argue and quibble about the second most precious. And really the key here is not that it's precious, but that it's non-renewable, right? Precious, non-renewable resources, your time. You've got a finite amount. I don't care what crazy tactics a billionaire is using to live forever. He's got a finite amount of time, or she. In this context, how should you use another precious resource that is potentially renewable, your energy? I would suggest, with this Venn diagram of benefits in mind, that we use the time that we have and the energy that we have to create a system to free up more of our future time and rejuvenate ourselves in the process. Vicki Robin became famous or infamous for the phrase, are you making a living or are you making a dying? All right. On the traditional career-based system, your entire validation came from Am I moving up this corporate ladder? But if at the same time you're getting more depressed, you're getting more weighed down, if it's not lighting you up, you can pivot at any point in time, right? I mean, maybe not the next day, but you can start making moves to free up more of your time. And I think we're speaking to a developer community here. You know that there are smarter systems. You know that throughout your day, there's a pattern of things, and you understand and appreciate intuitively that the more you recognize the pattern, the more you can automate the pattern and you can reclaim your time.
I think that there's a beautiful analog between programmers and hackers and the financial independence community, just because programmers are optimizers that spend all day trying to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit better. And that just kind of, if you apply that to your lifestyle and your money and your time, it's the same basic behavior. You're just using this optimizing and iterating approach over and over. I think it's an interesting insight.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you've nailed something. And I think it was even the trend that we noticed. Financial independence, you've maybe talked about it on your show up to this point. Maybe people have some idea, but I know it's been a big part of your life. You've achieved it in your own way. Financial independence is the idea that you no longer need to work for money. Now, this is a huge distinction between the idea that you don't work or that you never work. It's just that money no longer has to be your primary motivator. And I think, wow, you know how freeing it is to work 40 or 60 hours a week because you want to instead of because you have to? How does that change what you put your energy into? All right. How does that change? You no longer have to do the thing that drives the ROI, that drives the R, unless you've made a personal decision that that's the place that you want to live and it lights you up. You've discovered your board game, and your board game is now this puzzle and you're solving it. And the current metric or KPI that you're focused on is ROI. Conversely, and I'm kind of working through this is how I think through life. I think the other thing is people say, people that want to be interested in personal finance, or people that want, they have to be frugal by nature. They have to be budgeters. They have to be, no, I would not call myself a frugal person by nature. I would prefer to spend money versus not spend money. But I do think about the cost. I graduated high school and I wanted the truck. They didn't have the Cybertrucks at the time, but the doors still stayed on. So they had that going for them. So anyways, wanted the truck. But even then, and I missed it with the student loan debt. So you get some things right. We don't get everything right. But even then, I didn't want to spend the next 5 years of my life just trying to get the truck paid off, right? You're back in a loop. When stuff absorbs all of your economic output, you've lost the forest for the trees because you're not renewing your time. So people that aren't frugal, but still think through a somewhat midterm to long-term mindset, says the stuff's going to be waiting for me later. We can do the stuff later. But when it's a rounding error, when it doesn't affect my timeline to get back my most precious non-renewable resource, my time. So obviously frugal people have an advantage because it comes naturally. But those of us that like and prefer to spend money but are motivated by understanding that your most precious non-renewable resource is your time, people that are choosing not to spend their money or have an inherent advantage of reclaiming your most precious resource, your most precious asset. They have more time. Well, we can practice something called delayed gratification. I'll see you later. And now I do have my 2-year-old new to me premium truck at the age of 40. But it didn't cost me anything in terms of my net worth. It didn't cost me anything in terms of my payment plan. It didn't cost me anything because I waited until I'd solved my financial picture.
Yeah, I love that quote from, I think it's The Millionaire Next Door. It may have been the redo of that book, but one of those two Dr. Stanley books basically says the difference between wealthy people and unwealthy people is people who are high earners only buy expensive things in anticipation of becoming rich, and wealthy people buy expensive things after they're rich.
Yeah, if you want to be rich, you need to look rich. I don't know if that's exactly how it works.
No, not so much. So take me back to, you have $160,000 in student loan debt. Are you gutting it out in pharmacy then, or?
Yeah. So I'm gutting it out in pharmacy. This isn't even the boring middle. I wish I was at the boring middle. This is the get back to broke stage. All right. And this is paying for mistakes. So if you've got heavy debt, you're going to have to come up with a plan. There's no one way, right? But you need to just be honest with yourself, map it out on paper and organize your debts by interest rate and figure out, all right, is my plan? Grind it out and pay off the minimum over the years, right? I have some sort of forgiveness plan. Whatever. There's no dogma about the path here, but you do have to make a choice, or else the choice is made for you and you won't like the outcome. With all the debt, mapped out together, you say, all right, what's the plan here? Is it aggressively pay it off and then start the next chapter? For me, it was my own version of extreme frugality, whatever that means to individuals, but my own version of cutting cost. I was newly married, no kids at this particular point in time. By the way, as your life gets more complex, it gets harder to do. So these moments of austerity, chosen austerity in our lives are admittedly much easier when there's less other people that are affected by them. I remember this funny story of me going gangbusters on the frugality for a month there and checking like the electricity on the outlets. I think I saw a Money Mustache article where he had talked about runaway electricity or something like that. So I remember at one time trying to get the vampire electricity. All the outlets are off. Where's the electricity going? Wait, the refrigerator's on. What else is that? My wife, I was just like dripping sweat. I'm dripping sweat. She's like, I'm going to divorce you. Like we are not in a good place. You need to move on from this. I moved on. You got to pick your battles.
I don't know. I think your wife is right there because you can't shrink your way into greatness. And at some point, like you get your electric bill down to zero, that doesn't fix everything.
Don't fix everything.
Cool. You optimize the hell out of that, but
yeah, we can switch back and forth. It's 80-20, right? It's Pareto's. So you need to figure out what the big levers are that you have control over, right? And start on those first. It's not that you can't do the other stuff. But if there's an elephant in the room, we probably want to focus on that first. But I do like the idea of just stepping on the scale, right? Let's get I'm not talking about a budget here, but let's get all the expenses mapped out and see what our life costs and where our money flow goes. You can pretty quickly identify if this is an expenses problem or an income problem. All right. And both of those have different directions. Now, we could do a financial independence tactical thing, but I suspect for your audience, the greater benefit here would be just identifying that and moving on to some of these other principles that we're going to go to. But needless to say, I paid down the debt over a relatively short period of time, about 4 years.
160 grand in 4 years.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if you think about that, I had my life at the time, this is 2012 expenses, had my life as a newlywed couple down to about $40K, something like that. Got a starter house that wasn't super expensive. I do feel for those that are purchasing a house in 2025 with the interest rates and the increased prices. But this is just the numbers that we had in Virginia, about 45K. And we were making maybe between two incomes, no kids, right? Maybe 160 at the time. 160, somewhere in that range. You could see how after tax, you're able to put away about 40 or 50K a year. And we were just doing the match on the employer side, very little additional. Let's get it ground out. Now, at the same time, what's amazing about entrepreneurship, and in particular, we're talking to a developer community, is you guys realize how little it costs to do what we are doing. All right. So the next ethos, the next thing that I want to talk about here is talent stacking. All right. This was coined, I believe, by Scott Adams. It was just a quick line in a book that he dropped. I don't think he spent a ton of time building it out, but it was this idea that to talent stack is this idea that, yes, it's great to be the best in the world at anything, but you really don't have to be. If you're just like in the top 20%, of a variety of things, you can start making connections that other people just simply aren't making. All right. I don't know how far he went with that, but I made that my personal identity. I can learn anything. Now, for contrast, think about this. I just spent 8 years in pharmacy school and I was fixing printers and filling in for technicians when they didn't show up and calling insurance companies to sort prior authorizations on medications. This was a pretty meaningless existence compared to the 8 years of school that I'd just come out, right? I was working in retail pharmacy. Not fun. You don't see any happy pharmacists out there. They don't exist, or at least they don't exist on the retail side. They know. I'm not blowing their cover. They know. Try to find someone that looks happy inside of a pharmacy and then give them a drug test. Now, outside of retail, all hands are off. There's a lot of really cool other opportunities out there, but retail has just been gutted down to nothing. All right. So I have nothing to show after walking away from pharmacy, nothing to show for that education. So in terms of, did that add to my talent stack? Nothing. All right. Yeah. You want to know what the dosing is and the maximum dosing is on Tylenol and over a couple products. And you want to know what over-the-counter product to get. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Well, look, you have to be smart to do that. So you put in your brain reps.
Sure, but for our purposes in the talent stacking, let's just be hyperbolic, right? Nothing, all right? Let's stay in the hyperbolic lane. So with that in mind, nothing to show for it. And I'm a little bit, actually I am, I'm angry about it because again, time is your most precious resource. Now this should be encouraging to someone that identifies with that and like, I spent all this time in undergrad and then I spent all this time in this first 4 years and I got nothing. I mean, maybe you did. Like if you want to go back the other way, you could probably make a list of things that happened, connections that were made, experience that was gained, how it allowed you to get your current job. I used it to build my backstory for what we're talking about now. So have I gotten mileage out of it? Absolutely. I could redeem all of these, right? It could be the fuel that fires you into the next thing. But when we're talking about talent stacking in this context, we're talking about incremental building of skills that allow you to see things that other people aren't seeing. And the great thing is, I tend to agree with the statement, there is nothing new under the sun. But at the same time, when you start making connections that other people are making, you start looking around at patterns, you start to see a solution to a problem over here that in some way has been solved by another entity in another space over here, but it hasn't been applied here. And you say, I wonder what it would look like to be able to do that. And that's kind of the idea is when I start getting into something, money doesn't have to be the ROI because money can be a long-term thing, right? Because again, it's not this rushing urgency. I'm not trying to figure out how to pay them. So it allows me to spend time creatively looking at a smaller idea and a solution with this, kind of feeling over my shoulder of, all right, well, how might that be useful later? I have this. If you're developers, you can kind of appreciate this. Maybe you have this little repo over here where you put this little project together and you're not sure how you're going to use it yet, but you're kind of glad you have it. And the next time you're over here, you're starting on a new project. I wonder if I could bring that in. It's kind of the same idea, right? You're starting to make connections that other people aren't making. You're starting to bring your creativity. You're starting to look around. And this is the next thing. And this was now, I'm doing this show and we're talking about this concept of financial independence and I'm serving this community, highlighting again, who wants to listen to my story? The guy that's like climbing his way out of debt and all of us have limiting beliefs about how we can't do X, Y, Z. And Justin, you're kind of experiencing this now, except you have accomplished a lot with yours. But to the same degree, why not find the people that have and talk to them? And this is my next, how many have I said here? Time is your most precious non-renewable resource. We said that. And then we talked about getting renewable energy, and we talked about talent stacking. These are my life philosophies now that I live by. Here's the next one. And again, I cannot claim credit for the origin of any of these. It just doesn't matter. This is my personal philosophy over time. I'm not competing with Confucius, but here we go. The next one is you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. All right. This is a fundamental truth. Now, we have 5 people that we spend time with, but we don't look at it through the lens of talent stacking, and we don't look at it ordinarily through the lens of what do we want to do with the next chapter. These 5 people can be rotated over time. You don't have to tell them. You don't have to break up with them. I'm just saying, whenever you want to get closer to someone else, you've decided that your identity is going to change, whether or not we're talking about fitness, whether or not we're talking about development, whether or not we're talking about whatever. You're going to need to change your structure of where you're getting information from to move yourself to a different place. Because fundamentally, if you don't have it now, it already tells you that your current sphere of influence is never going to be able to feed that to you. Also, when you pick a new 5, by the way, the new 5 don't have to know that you picked them. You can do it by listening to a podcast, right? That's a common thing is podcasting can speak to your soul and associate you and help you find your tribes in different areas that can then help you get closer and closer to speaking the lexicon to understand. So like, for instance, everybody in this community, when I start talking about how we want to be dry and we want to be SRP and we need to think about object-oriented programming. All right. If I go say that to a fitness community, it means nothing. Maybe, mostly. If I say it to you, yep. Any project, yep, absolutely. Guiding stakes. Do you understand that's because you're part of this? And yes, it's also because you've now done it and you understand the why. You understand without needing to be explained. But when you're entering into a community, you don't know that until you enter into the community. You have to enter into your community. So you have to pick your communities of care, and you can always be rotating. What served you in 2020 and 2021 won't necessarily be the thing that serves you in 2026. The world's changed for developers. It has fundamentally changed with AI. Absolutely nothing can be taken for granted. And I realize maybe someone's listening to this 5 years from now, 3 years from now. Well, who knows? Who knows what it actually means for us? But right now, we've seen this massive pivot from junior engineers and syntax and clean typing and words per minute, ability to go find answers on Slack, to now senior engineers that are very curious and are able to iterate quickly. If you are skating by, not having questions, just doing things that you were told, you are going to be fundamentally undervalued and trickled out of the system, right? The curious and those that are making connections that others aren't making are who are going to survive and thrive and create multiples for themselves over the next decade. Absolutely.
Preach. Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one of the reasons I'm not worried about AI or worried about losing my job to AI. It's because I will be at the forefront of this. This is my career. I do this all day, every day.
And it's amazing. I mean, through this lens, you are limited now for the first time. You are limited by your curiosity. You don't have questions. You're sitting there in a single day without a question. You have the entire lexicon of humanity's knowledge at your fingertips, limited by 2,000 tokens, right? You don't have 14 hours of questions a day. Are you insane?
You're either insane or the most boring person on earth.
Right. So this is a chance. Why don't I have questions? Why aren't there things that I want to know? Think about Talent Stack. Think about how now you have a question. By the way, if you have a question, your first question is not the question. You got to start there. You want to do it, but you need to realize that just because you know nothing about it, you need to have your first question should be broad enough to give you not the specific thing you think is going to be the answer and you're preloading it, but you need to create that first question in a way that gives you a breadth of ways that people attack. As a developer, you understand and appreciate there's no way to do any one thing. There might arguably be a best thing after a ton of iterations and a ton of time, but it's so contextual that it's almost meaningless. There are probably multiple very competitive best ways to do something. Reddit and Facebook and Twitter all use different ways to achieve global dominance, right? There's not a one thing that's happening here. So with that in mind, if you go in with a question where you've already decided the outcome and you're trying to get yes for an answer, you're going to get it to your great detriment.
Yes, absolutely. I really want to highlight that. And then I think as we learn to use these tools better, asking for the answer to a question, especially when it's something you don't know a whole lot about right now, is actually wrong. You should ask for a framework for how do I learn this? Or what are the things that I need to know in order to be in the top 10% of people who are doing whatever this is?
And what you just described is talent stacking, right? What are the characteristics that put someone in the top 10%? What is the framework? How do I stay dry? How do I stay SRB? How do I do? And yeah, I understand that to some degree, you guys know we just pivoted in how to create prompts, right? That's not actually the point. It's not the point. The point is a framework for life and success over the coming decades that is going to reward the curious and is going to exile those with no questions. All right. Every day you get a chance to make yourself more practical, more useful, and you do that by pushing your own personal limits. And if you're forced to do it under the constraint of how do I pay my mortgage, how do I pay my whatever, you're going to be able to take less risk, right? It's going to force you into a more defensive posture. If you can free up your time where not everything needs to be a slam dunk, not everything needs to chase ROI. Look at all the people that chased ROI through SEO and are eating it right now, just eating it, right? If you're just chasing ROI, you're forced to look at what are the best practices based on history over the last 5 years. And almost by precedent, by the time that you get it sorted and worked out, it's irrelevant. You need to be making connections that other people are making.
And AI is moving faster than SEO is. And especially right now, I don't know if it'll stay at this velocity forever. Probably not. But if you did a full analysis of AI tools and what they were capable of 6 months ago, you should throw that away and start again, because it's just everything is so dramatically different. And even now, we've already kind of done this mindset switch where it's is this before or after ChatGPT? And I had this with Daniel a couple days ago. He's a frequent guest on the show. And it's why was this so hard? And it's we didn't have an LLM when we were solving that problem. Oh, yeah, there was a whole time, most of my life before we could just do this. And it's absolutely incredible. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's good. It's useful. I monologue. I apologize, but I'm enthusiastic about the topic. So that's why I said, yes, haven't done a lot of these interviews recently. I've been actually doing a lot of development, and it's been pretty time consuming, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy, but it's a pretty cool feeling when on Friday or Saturday you're looking forward to Monday because you can get back in, because that problem that's been needling at you when you had downtime, inspiration struck. I played a lot of Tetris as a kid, a very specific one. I had Tetris Attack on the Super Nintendo. I don't think they folded it into the Switch 2 games, Mario Party. I was trying to briefly look and see if it was there. I haven't seen it. Tetris Attack, Super Nintendo. Greatest game ever made. I was incredible at it. I was gifted. I was a prodigy. I was set apart. There was no academy for it. Otherwise, maybe I would have done that instead. However, you know how you can start to see the pattern right? You can start to anticipate what's going to happen. And it's not that you always have the perfect moves, but you have a set of moves set aside that are your go-tos, and they're familiar and they're there and they're ready for you. That is what putting yourself in a position to be ready to problem solve looks like. That is what understanding this common language, I think probably a lot of people get very fixated. Well, what language are you using? What's your thing? The best language for you is the one that allows you to get the job done, right? Get the job done. I can tell you what I enjoy using, and that's fine as an anecdote, but it's virtually irrelevant to you unless you're just doing this as an independent developer doing what you want. By and large, if you're working for a company, it's what does the company want to use? What does the employer want to use? What is the consultancy firm using? But even that, Justin will tell you after having talked to me, if you appreciate the principles and you're a curious person, Justin knows if he needed to, he could pick up a new language in a month. And because of the nature of the way that LLMs are changing things, the curious are rewarded. The curious are the rewarded. The senior engineers, it's very good for them to have an overarching appreciation of what the language can and can't do, but they don't need to know about the latest syntax. They have an appreciation for security. They have an appreciation for object orientation. They have an appreciation for the goals, and they can mirror and match what the tool set should be able to do reasonably and what their team can do and what the client wants. And you put it all together, you streamline the flow.
Well, I mean, we use this when we're interviewing, right? So it's just like, does this person know what a closure is? Can this person grok, and understand what a closure is and how it works? If you can do that, I don't care what language it's in. You have to be able to understand control flow. You have to be it's just a few things, but they're...
So what you're speaking about is experience, right? So I wanted to, this is my biggest complaint with the system right now. I escaped the traditional system and I found my own way. But the United States in particular is guilty, in my mind, of burying millions of kids every single year in $100,000 of student loan debt, and they're graduating and they have no experience, and frankly, they have no skills. And they also have had no practice interviewing, and so they get to the interview and they find out that they're in just the same shape as the high school GED graduate, maybe even worse because the high school GED graduate was forced to have 4 years of some sort of experience. There is zero chance that your Phoenix University diploma or your degree in some random thing is going to give you an edge on what we need. Like, think about this. We're in a space where jobs are contracting. Every employer is now looking at patterns and is looking at what can we streamline. And actually, we're going to see it go the other way as well, because small businesses have been given a massive lift, a massive advantage with what's happening. It used to be that what we were talking about could only be achieved by mega corporations with unlimited funding that could bring on unlimited developers to do all these things. And what has just happened is things have tightened. And now suddenly these little startups are able to play at the same levels of the big dogs based on their ability to bring other things to play. So what does that mean? Well, it means they're excited and they're going to scale, because you have to have a curious person to drive what's possible for a company. But in the meantime, all the jobs have to change. What was in middle management, what was in junior coding, what was here, it's shrinking as we realize we need to be positioned to be over here. V2.1 of this company, we have to be aggressive. We have opportunities we've never had. We have a shrinking window. We need killers that can go out here and put us on a new frontier. Because this ability, there's going to be a purge, and there's going to be people on the other side, companies on the other side that have never had such visibility before. They're playing at the level with the unicorns. They're playing at the level, and just no other world would that have been possible. So they're looking for a very specific type of person, and it doesn't have to do with Harvard. It doesn't have to do with Oxford. It doesn't have to do with Stanford. It doesn't have to do with Liberty. It doesn't have to do with Virginia Tech. It doesn't have to do with your alma mater. It has to do with your ability to be curious, to communicate that curiosity and that killer motivation to get it done and go learn something that you don't know. They know you do not know the thing when you're getting your first job or your second job. But just like in this conversation, you can see my energy for realizing where this is headed and what's possible. Just like, well, do you know React Native? Yep, no idea. Well, would you hire me? Yeah, probably. I could probably get a job at a company that just works with React Native just through this conversation. Why? Because it's not a facade. It's not fake. It's clear that you have an understanding, that you have experience, that you've already self-taught yourself something new, that you're seeing connections that other people are making, and you can go get it.
It's absolutely true. And one of the things I love too about the whole concept of the talent stack, and this goes back to like learning theory and stuff, but everything that you learn, everything that you know is built off of something else, and it all comes back to the physical world. But as you learn programming concepts, as you learn technology and you see things, your surface area upon which you can glom on additional things just grows and grows, and you keep getting more and more surface area.
And then you got to maintain the surface area.
That's a separate issue, but as you start picking these things up, you learn them faster, and you move really quick. And then you pick up a new language, you're like, oh, they do this way. And when I pick up something that I'm not working with a lot, that's usually what I say on a daily basis, like, oh, they're doing it this way, or oh, they've made this decision. And it's kind of like a contextualized thing.
When you can go look at what someone else has done and you kind of realize, ooh, that's a cool connect. I hadn't thought about that, right? You can go look at any space, and actually all I see now, and this comes to the next thing. This is the way that I think now, right? We're working through these things. This is my current thing that I'm running. Justin, knowing, like, I know you've been aware of some of the work that I've done over the last year, so you'll probably be able to see this and identify this pattern. But this big thing that I just say out loud all the time to myself, and I just think through it. I journal about it. I don't journal the way my mom wanted me to. It's all forward looking, right? It's all like, ooh, but here's the phrase. Wouldn't it be cool if, right? My thing that I'm building right now in this next phase is I'm building an ecosystem. Right? I have an idea. I have a conversation that I want to foster. I have a community that I want to foster. I want to see something come to life. I'm building an ecosystem. And what lights me up is the idea that my ecosystem can take, wouldn't it be cool if, based on this specific community, what this specific community wants, and turn that into a reality.
Real quick, this episode is brought to you by Delta Systems, which is what Aaron and I do when we're not talking through microphones to you, the people of the internet. We've got a really, really great software team here, and we love to work with cool people on cool projects. So if that sounds like you and you've got a problem or you're in some kind of a jam, go to deltasystems.com, grab a time with us. We can beat up on your problem together, and if there's a fit there, amazing, we'll help you out. So deltasystems.com, grab an appointment, and hey, maybe we can work together.
Yeah, and so for anyone who isn't familiar with Jonathan and Brett and ChooseFI, they have a huge, monstrous community full of people who are interested in financial independence, who are on the path, who are doing lifestyle design, who are getting a little bit better each day. And this is his project he's working on now as he stepped back and he built this entire platform ecosystem, which is like it's basically a social media platform. I mean, it's a social media platform with tools. It does a ton of stuff. So you step back, you taught yourself everything about programming, and then launched a product into a community of thousands of people. The number of lessons that are available for people who will pay attention to them just in that whole act. So, hey, you're a non-technical co-founder. Like, you don't have to be. Talent Stack, you can pick this stuff up. There wasn't anything that, I'm sure you looked in the market to see if there was a piece of technology that would do what you wanted, and you got buckets.
I didn't want to find the technology to do what I want. I wanted to do what I wanted, right? I want to do what I want. Here's the great thing. When you're on the path to financial independence, forget being there. Just put yourself in this mind. You realize that due to high income, due to relatively low cost, due to a huge bonus you got, you're in a position where you could go 2 years without earning your income and you'd be just fine. Financial independence is not binary. It's not, oh, people that are FI can do whatever they want, and the rest of us, we got to wait 15. There is a mathematical equation to figure out based on how much your life costs and how much your expenses are when you're going to hit financial independence. You're never going to have to work again for money. But long before you get there, you have space. You have margin, right? If you have a year, 2 years, the question is, could you walk away from whatever thing is taking your soul and is just crushing it every single day you show up? And could you take this new energy and could you lean into this idea and could you learn enough skills, get enough experience to either just do your own thing? Sure. And I understand that's scary, right? Conversely, though, do enough things, fail a bunch privately. Like we know, like anything that we have done that has worked is built on many, many hours of failure. When something works the first time, it's almost scary because you're like, oh, I don't know what just happened. This is
What did I miss?
This is very unusual. I should be very nervous. I'm going to pay for this later. All right, well, let's ship it. Anyways, so like fail a bunch, understand it just as an exercise. Have an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if recognize the realistic version of that and just build it? Your language of choice, just build it. Create confirmation for yourself that, oh, I can learn something new. Here's how I did it. Do you understand that single story is probably all you really need to get the next job? And not only that, but not just the next job, but basically your dream job. You're like, here's where I was. I was doing this It didn't push me. I know where the future's headed. I can see the obvious. I was a widget on a widget line. It wasn't pushing my creativity. I realized I need to be on the forefront of this. I needed to upskill. I needed to transfer my skills. I wanted to be here, and I'm in my 30s. And I'm like, you know what? All right. I've done the responsible thing. I've done the fiscally responsible. I've got some savings. Let me take the next 2 years and just self-educate. And I poured myself into podcasts like this. I learned ideas. I got inspiration and I built it. And here's my repo of projects that I built. Here's the problems that I've seen with it. And here's what I would do next time. And I'm looking for a company that I can take this energy and put it into to help you guys get results and win in the process. I'm looking for something that lights me up. The new grads don't do this. They have no appreciation for this. They have no context for this. And employers don't hear this because everybody is nervous about what happens in the absence of the paycheck.
And having a foundation, especially if you have an entrepreneurial bent, in which most of our listeners, you wouldn't be listening if you didn't have some kind of interest in it, lets you swing for the fences, lets you take a risk. You just talked about you couldn't have done any of this stuff if you were under 160 grand in debt, and your first step was to pay that stuff off. Not sure if that was a limiting belief or not, but...
Maybe a limiting belief, possibly, but there's a continuum. So there's no absolutes in anything, right? There is your personal belief, which may be right, and hopefully it's right for you. That's the real thing. If you get the outcome, the question is, in retrospect, does it matter? No, not really. I'm very happy with the choice that I made at the time that I made it, but there's the right path for you. And so, yeah, if you have the entrepreneurial bent, I mean, let me just put this in perspective. So one of my things was, what am I paying for? What am I paying monthly for? Because I've never really inspected how hard this would be to replace or to do myself. Whether it's podcast dynamic ad insertion, whether it's automatic podcast transcription, whether it's show outline generation, whether it's building a social media platform, whether it's hosting my own courses, I had the luxury to some degree, and this is the wrong word to put it, but I had the luxury of with ChooseFI and not being a coder, not having the ability to look at this stuff, I had the ability to see it the other way, where you paid for everything. No idea how it worked, plenty of complaints, plenty of grievances when it was wrong, right? But you just paid because you needed it. The cool thing is through this lens, and again, I agree with you, there's a clear point in time. It's not post-Claude, it's not post-GPT, right? Post-GPT, everything should be inspected. Everything should be inspected. And I think the next thing we're coming to, I really wanted to coin this one myself, but you know how life is. You didn't actually say anything. Someone else always said it first. I was really hoping it was me, but I know it wasn't. Cockroach mode. I went ahead, I love it so much that I wanted to find out. It was actually Paul Graham, 2007. He wrote an essay called Why Start a Startup in a Bad Economy. Never read the article, but I felt like for, transparency, I should tell you where it was. But the cockroach mode, it appeals to my soul as well. And it's this idea that, if you are a SaaS founder, especially if you're a solo crew building it from scratch, if you've got your expenses under control, your actual costs are as close to zero as you could reasonably imagine. You can be cockroach mode. You get the luxury of spending your time to saying, wouldn't it be cool if finding the community that you're trying to serve and serving them with radical transparency and enthusiasm. And we're moving now kind of into how I do development, and Justice has seen this. I fail very publicly. I ship live. I don't do a lot of testing. I let everybody know up front. I'm doing a lot of stuff in beta, and this is my talent stack happening in front of people. And yes, sometimes there's server errors. And Justin, I love your comments on that, but let me just contrast this. Here's the way it used to work, and the way it does work, vast majority. And this is your advantage if you're in cockroach mode. Like, I'm invincible in this context, right? Like, in this context, my costs are as close to zero as possible. I get to fail publicly, and I get to fail forward always, right? I mean, there's tactics here. You want to do zero deployment and, continuous integration, continuous development. I'll roll it back. My bad. I'll roll it back. My bad. But here we go. But think about this. The way it used to work is some marketing team, funded team, had a big idea. They put a pretty wrapper on something. Then they go sell it to VC and they get a bunch of debt. And then they hire a bunch of very expensive developers to help them build their thing. And in parallel to that, they also spend an insane amount of money trying to find an audience. Right? And then they run out of money in 2 years because the bet failed and then it's all bust and they do the next one. All right. This is the tried and true path. Well, I don't know about tried and true, but this is the path that it has always been. In contrast, play this out. The way that I've done is actually the way that Justin's kind of doing it right now in its own way. It's what I believe is the path, the single best path. It's an audience first business model. All right. Find the audience first, find what the audience needs, build that business. It's bulletproof. Your audience that's finding your brand, finding your idea, They're already telling you what it is that they want. They are literally already telling you the problem. When, Justin, when someone's, let's say, Justin, I was really thinking you can have this person on here. I'm having this issue. Like, how would you tackle this? You are daily getting interfaced with the actual demands of the actual audience. You don't need to go do market research. It's coming to you. Build that. Build that for them. Especially if it was already on your mind. Maybe it was down here, but you heard it 3 or 4 times. Now it's up here. Now you're at level 10. Now you're excited about it. When you get I'm excited about that idea. They're excited about that idea. Why isn't someone doing this? Wouldn't it be cool if? Boom. That's your Venn diagram of benefits. That's talent stacking. That's cockroach mode. That's audience first. That's clearly your path.
That's absolutely fantastic. And just to highlight for folks, like, you dropped thousands of people into a piece of software that you wrote. You don't have a formal background doing this or experience doing this. This is your thing. And then you had thousands of people tell you everything that you did wrong and everything that the software needed to do that it didn't do yet.
Love it. Do you ever watch the Pixar movie with the Invincibles, a little superhero family and whatnot? And they threw the main guy, the dad, they threw him, the bad guy. This is a poor example. It's going to make me look bad, but I'll just go with it. I just remember it, though. The bad guy gets thrown in front of this machine robot thing and he beats the robot bad. Well, it turns out that was like version 5 of the robot. And it turns out the next version was called Kronos version 10, and it was the one that was supposed to be. But the thing is, you can always make it better. If you are going in cockroach mode, someone telling you that something's wrong, when you get done with the list of things that are wrong, you're never at the finish line, but you're winning. That's now not wrong. Of course, I totally understand. Why can't you just stay fixed? I fixed you. Why can't you just stay fixed? Yeah, I've been there. I got you.
That's not how software works.
You see my point, right? Regression notwithstanding, you solve enough problems and you solve it the right way with the principles that we talked about, because you're not just doing it. You're saying, all right, well, I keep having to come back to this. How do I build a system to test this? How do I build a system to log this? How do I build? And what you're doing is you're starting to look for more of the nuance, right? Your first one was just, you didn't know the nuance. You didn't know you didn't understand the question enough. You didn't appreciate how many contingencies. Intuitive isn't free. It's not something that's just handed to you at your first attempt. It's earned over time by answering problems, taking a look at your solution and how it didn't match the problem, and then iterating over that. So I'm building this tax calculator right now that helps you map out your path to financial independence. And this is a perfect example. In our community, we talk about financial independence, right? Financial independence. Here's your financial independence number. Okay, cool. How do you do it? Very easy. Super easy. Just take your expenses, right? Whatever your expenses are over the course of a year and multiply that times 25. Alternatively, you could take your monthly expenses, multiply it times 12, multiply that times 25. That is a financial independence number. So you could anticipate that if you had this amount of assets invested, earning a decent return, you would basically have enough money to last you for the rest of your life for, 30, 40 years, something in that line. And it's based on work called the Trendy study. Now, here is the problem with that number. And we're working through this like we work through with anything. Sounds good. I can do that calculator. I can spin that up in 5 minutes. Yeah, a lot of people have. No big deal. All right. Your expenses aren't static. They're not static. And your income, right, which is what you would use to decide how much you're going to invest in various ways. Your income isn't your income because there's taxes involved. Oh, and wait, your taxes are affected by your contributions and your tax deductions and everything else. So your expenses change. Oh, and by the way, you're also going to be earning future income, like a pension, Social Security, etc.
But not until I'm 65.
Oh, but I'm actually retiring in the military and I got retired early, so I need to be able to do it at 30. But you understand how, because you're interested in a problem, you're exposed to the problem, and you drop this simple calculator and someone's like, yeah, but what if I have a pension? Oh, that's good though. I should do that. All right, but what if I get my pension at 20? Okay, but what if I'm in Canada and the United States and I don't have access to a 401k? Okay, but what if I'm in the United States and I have access to a 401k and a 457 and they don't share the limits? Well, now welcome to my personal hell, but I love it. And I spend my time solving that. And I don't need it to return an ROI at a particular point in time. But if I build the best thing that serves this community the best way, it presents me with a lot of options at any point that I choose to do that. This is how you can have the biggest win by not worrying about the win and focusing on fundamentals, talent stacking, building your personal skill set. If it all goes to crap and it all fails, I'm employed tomorrow if I want to be. But the problem is you get addicted to solving problems, right? If you can put yourself in that place and you realize, I have like 6 or 7 new ideas that I never even were a How do I do this? What is a vector? A vector database. What the heck is that? Like, why don't I know? It's going to take you some time to learn it, but you're one question away from a bad question, and you're maybe 14 hours away from a pretty good understanding of the problem, not able to execute on it. And so if you can pull it off, if you can get the space, you're like, I kind of want to stay in the self-led place. I could go get a job, and I could get a job that lines up. But if I really could, I just want to keep learning what I want to learn. ROI be damned, because I have a lot of really small, inconsequential questions to answer to help me get to a place that's massively important. I need to build my own framework. No college is going to be able to give this to you. No course is going to be, because you are making connections that other people aren't making. Now, I have gotten lots of help from online courses over periods of time with little pieces of the puzzle. That's far more useful than how to learn to code.
Mm-hmm. That's a terrible question.
How do I learn to code? All right, well, maybe this week I'll start on HTML 3 days later. Got it. Done. Next week, CSS. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, JavaScript. I'll do JavaScript next week. That's kind of where I'm at the moment.
No, that's absolutely incredible. And I love that you have all these people who are telling you what features you need, and you built the audience first. And so now your product market fit, you're not exactly working on ROI, but you basically have thousands of people who are working with you to help you find product market fit for the platform that you're building. Even if it's not monetized, it's the same thing.
That was out of necessity. It wasn't like I didn't go like get someone else's opinion. I just realized I don't have the bandwidth as a single shop to be able to create unit tests for every little thing that I'm shipping. So one of the biggest things that I found useful, and this is now kind of brass tacks for me. So we have about 20,000 users on the site. I have I do some rudimentary analytics, but, routinely 40 to 50 people on the site at a time, just running it pretty sporadically. I think that'll go up once I push out an app for this as well, but it's used. People are getting on daily. And the cool thing is when no one's using it, like even when no one's using it, you can fail very big with very little consequences. So your biggest problem is like, no one's on the site. Okay. No, enjoy it. Like go big, go make those changes big, like see how it works on production, do that. And then someone is on the site and you ruin their day because X, Y, Z. Yeah, okay, we probably better get a little bit more cautious with how we're doing this, that sort of thing. Let me tell you just how far we've come. I remember seeing someone that put a red box in email, like just a red box around some sort of call to action email. And I was like, how do you do that? That's so cool. Oh, I got to learn how to do that. Hey, that's level 1, right? Now, I remember I was on WordPress for a long time.
I hope you like table-based layouts, my friend. You can't do layouts in email. That's long before you were in the game. That's how we used to build websites, my friend. They're back in the 90s. That's how it was done. You created an invisible table and you put the whole damn website in this invisible table. So, sorry. Anyway.
The good old days, right? No, I don't want it that much. Anyways, the next version of this was I remember fighting WordPress for a long time. That's how you did it. You want to start a website. You obviously do WordPress. Now it's Squarespace or Wix or whatever. But again, the whole idea, the selling point was don't learn to code, just do it. And I use that to my benefit. Like I was able to build my website on WordPress, but something very frustrating. Like I would like a drop down that's smooth and isn't based on a request. I didn't have the verbiage at the time, but I just want a pretty drop down. Virtually impossible on WordPress for like all of its time. Maybe it can be soft. This is how far away I was. And then the next version of that was they had something called Page Builder. So you could do a WordPress plugin like Elementor and you could stuff all the HTML and the CSS in the database. I had no idea that's what's actually happening. I recognize now how horrible that is. But at the time it was like, ooh, I can have an idea and it can be pretty and I can look at it. My next thing was, because I realized, I got to move this thing along was, all right, how can I fix WordPress? It's unfixable, people. But that was my quiz. This is what I'm telling you. Be very careful about your first question. Your first question should not be, how can I fix WordPress? The better question would be, why is WordPress so bad? Now, then maybe that would be better. And then, like, what are the alternatives? So anyways, coming full circle on this, stubbornness keeps you in your lane longer than it needs to be. If you're fighting convention out of stubbornness, you're choosing a very hard lane for yourself. It doesn't mean you should never try something new, but it does mean you should look around at best practices and retool, right? Like retool when needed. Don't stay over here fighting convention, like trying to be a Windows developer, for instance. God help you. I was with you for a long time. That's insane. I have spent months of my life trying to get a simple single thing to work using VirtualBox or whatever else, like go buy a Mac. Just do it. Just go buy what? Well, I don't like the mouses on the right click. I don't even know what that means.
You could also just run Linux and you don't have to buy an overpriced computer. But anyway.
But again, does Linux require a little bit more, like there's a little bit more tooling involved, right? You can do it Linux or whatever, but Windows, like, did they go out of their way to switch up the line codes, like // whatever else? Like, you always have to translate everything when you're working over there. If you're working in a bash terminal, yeah. If you're working in Linux, you're working in Mac, you're going to be in good shape. You do not want to spend your life trying to fix something that the world's best software developers have not solved. That is not your call. That is not your hill to die on. And there's a million small versions of that. So first thing, go look around and see what the best practices are for how people are getting started in something. Second, start with a starter pack on something, right? Don't name it the actual project that you want to name yet. This is not going to work. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be your friend. It's going to suck. You're going to burn it. You're going to start over with a new repo after you've gotten all your failures out of some of your one, and you're going to, all right, now I'm ready. And guess what? I'm on like version 30, right? Like most of that have been scrapped. I have so many files of repos that didn't work that I've gone through. But what's really cool, and the reason I haven't deleted them is maybe there was something over there, right? On the next one, I brought in the files that I needed, the clean ones, the ones that I was more confident in, and I kind of started fresh. Don't be afraid to let it go, but don't delete it. Don't delete it. Let it go. Start fresh. Bring over the fresh pieces of information. The next one. This is the problem that I had with WordPress. If I need functionality, I should just look for a plugin to solve it for me. You will regret that. Choose your plugins very judiciously, very cautiously. Go as small as possible and make the case before you do it. Half the time, if it's something small, you're going to be able to write a directive. You're going to be able to do something to recreate that functionality, and it's going to be in-house. When you are using these large frameworks, in my project, there's probably 3 frameworks that all have to play nice together, or else my life is ruined. All right. All these plugins that are hook onto them are using random subversions of those. The more tiny little plugins I have doing X, Y, Z, the more odds are when one of the big frameworks changes, I either am saddled and stuck with the old one, or I need to like gut it and move on. And so you find this shrinking effect because it's not worth it trying to do PRs for a deprecated, non-maintained plugin that was do something that you didn't have the energy to tackle a few years ago. Think that through. So these are kind of the things that I've come in. And yeah, I'm with you. I said Mac because for me, it was Windows. I was on Windows. And part of the reason I was on Windows is because I was doing front-end stuff. Windows is very useful for front-end stuff. I was doing a lot of Adobe. I was doing a lot of just, podcast editing, things like that. It's very useful for front-end stuff. As soon as you need to get to code, you're wondering what they were smoking back in the 1980s. Like, was it just out of spite? Probably. You don't know what happened. So with that in mind, Macs or Linux, yeah, absolutely.
I was just giving you a hard time. Mac's a reasonable choice.
But yeah, I'm assuming you're on Linux, right?
Yeah, but I'm not a fan, so that's okay. To be fair, like if you have to run the Adobe Creative Suite, the parts of that are not a web property yet, like...
Oh, that was it. I forgot. I was trying to remember. I had Mac, I had Linux brought up and I was going to go to that, but I wasn't going to be able to run Adobe on it. That was actually put me over the top on Mac. So that's context, right? Context is everything.
You heard it here first. Adobe is an ignorant, backwards company. Adobe is supporting Linux. But anyway, yeah, no, Mac's a reasonable choice. I just got to josh you because it's religious here.
I'll take it. I don't have a closing thought here, but I'll leave you with these. Just remember this. Here's you guys. I wrote these down. I got note cards. Why do they have like a letter on the back? Because I didn't have any actual note cards in my house. And so I had to go steal it from my daughter who was learning her letters downstairs. So that's on me. I'll give it back to her afterwards. Here we go. Time is your most precious, non-renewable resource. The aggregation of marginal gains. We didn't really get to that, but the whole idea is don't think because you didn't get to your idea of the finish line, you haven't made progress, right? If you can identify at the end of the day something you know now or have a better understanding of that you didn't have this morning and then carry that into the next day, and every day you can say that, say it out loud, say it as a mantra to yourself, whatever, imagine where you'll be 365 days from now. Cockroach mode, you guys got that one. I'm pretty sure about that. And talent stacking. There might have been one that I dropped, but again, my note cards were spread out and I didn't get it. But those are the ones. WebSif, wouldn't it be cool if... don't look at the next year, next 2 years with fear. Look at it with excitement and opportunity. And through the lens of what we talked about in this conversation, if you could say, yeah, I heard this, I locked onto it and I took action based on it. And that's a big thing. Take action, right? And that is not a platitude. This 30-minute, 40-minute thing that we just did, oh gosh, an hour. Okay, sorry guys. This 58-minute thing that we just did, it serves you absolutely zero if you just smile and nod and say, oh yeah, that was a good idea. But it changes your life if you take action on a few of those principles and start moving forward.
I can't think of a better way to put an end to the wordless rundown of everything we covered. I think it's beautiful. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people connect with you, with your community, with your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is called ChooseFI, Choose Financial Independence. I was the co-host on it for probably 3 or 4 years. I'm still part of the show, and I'm actually creating the development side now. I do the development for it, and I created local.choosefi.com. So choosefi.com is the main website, and we're at my playground, my ecosystem is local.choosefi.com.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, my friend. Thanks for cruising along with us today. Hopefully you guys will like and subscribe, and we'll be here next week for the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.